We're here in Manila today, and I'm joined by Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski. Thank you very much for having us and taking the time out of your busy schedule to accommodate us. Thank you. And now this is the final day of your whirlwind tour here in Southeast Asia. You've been to 3 countries, you've had a lot of high-level meetings, and you've had some of your deputy ministers here as well to further polish bilateral relations between the countries. Can you please tell us your overall impression now that this is the final day?
I think it is important to remember that our political, economic, and security interests lie not only in our immediate neighborhood, but also further afield. The 3 countries that I've just visited, Malaysia, Singapore, and the Philippines, all stress, for example, that they are affected by the war in Ukraine, by the Russian invasion, that they felt the rise in food prices and energy prices. They, of course, have a vote at the UN, which is important. They take part in the global conversation, and they meet with the leaders of Russia and China. So it's important to influence their opinion.
I'm interested because you've drawn this comparison, which makes it, I think, very real for Asian countries to relate to some of the problems that are being dealt with by Poland and others on the European continent, and that is expansionism and revisionism. It's China here in Asia, but you were able to give the context for what's happening in Europe. How did some of the Asian officials in Malaysia or in Singapore or here in Philippines respond to those comparisons?
They seem to be sensitive to the argument that this is the last colonial war, what we are seeing in Europe, because most of these countries were colonized by Europeans and they didn't like it. Poland was not a colonizer, but also a victim of colonialism, and so is Ukraine today. And I think it's important to shape global public opinion and to describe the Russian aggression against Ukraine for what it is, as an attempt to recover a colony that chose to go its own way. And when you put it like that, they get it.
Mm-hmm, certainly. Well, I'd like to ask you about the other means of relations, if you will, because Poland will have the presidency of the European Union starting in 2025. Were there any attempts to, say, have not only further bilateral relations, but also talk on that level?
Yes, there were. Malaysia will hold the ASEAN chairmanship next year, and the Philippines the year after that. Of course, the chairmanship of the Council of the European Union is not what it used to be in the field of foreign affairs, because we now have a permanent high representative. But the foreign minister of the chair country is, for the duration, the deputy to the high rep. So she may possibly delegate me to come to some countries. And it's an opportunity for us to accelerate discussions between the EU and the countries concerned on the various agreements that they have pending with the EU, be it on trade, be it on phytosanitary arrangements, the things that they want to move along. And therefore it's useful to learn their perspectives. Which is why I've brought the deputy ministers for defense, for digital matters, and for agriculture. I hope that we will also promote Poland's IT products, Polish defense products. Here we are in the Philippines, where they fly Black Hawks manufactured in Poland. And I learned yesterday that actually 3 of them will be assigned to carry the president of the Philippines. That's a very good ad for the quality of Polish workmanship. And equally, the Deputy Minister for Agriculture has found that there is demand for Polish milk, for Polish apples, for Polish meat products. And he's working hard to remove the bureaucratic barriers.
I also heard that Poland plans to send more deputy ministers here to Asia in order to further bilateral ties.
Yes, I think it's important. A Polish foreign minister has not been to the Philippines for 2 decades. In the case of Malaysia, even longer. I think we need to rediscover each other, because it seems to me like our economies are in perfect synergy, and the trade between us should be much bigger than it is.
Now, concerning the reaction of officials here, were you felt very welcome to come here with this delegation? You just said it was long overdue.
Very much so. The Philippines has a powerful neighbor which is encroaching on its borders. We know what it feels like. And they're also a good ally of the United States, just like us. So yes, we see eye to eye, and the reception was great.
How can economic ties be broadened in Malaysia?
Well, Singapore is a really interesting country. Small, no natural resources, but very rich. You might say it's the mirror opposite of Russia. Big, huge natural resources, and devoted to making its citizens poor. Singapore is a very useful hub for doing business with other parts of this region. Singapore is an investor in Poland. Poland welcomes investments from this part of the world. We should encourage our companies to explore these markets, and vice versa.
I'd also like to ask you about something you mentioned in Singapore, and you said this at the lecture that you gave. China can force the end of the war in Ukraine. She will get a lot of praise and goodwill if she ended this madness.
Yes, I personally think so, because there are many potential intermediaries. President Erdogan talks to both sides. There is the UN. The Swiss, the Ukrainians have asked India to intervene. But I believe there is only one country that can not only mediate, but can actually influence the aggressor to end this madness, and it is the People's Republic of China. And I do maintain that this would be very welcome in Europe, and China would regain some of the goodwill that it's lost recently.
As a former member of the European Parliament, do you think that the European Union has a good enough policy when it comes to China, or do you think that there's still a lot of division?
I was a co-author on behalf of my party in the European Parliament of EPP of the Parliament's policy document on China, and I helped to coin the phrase collaborate where possible, compete where needed, confront where necessary. We are comparable economies. China has a huge trade surplus. Only as the European Union can we influence China's trade policies towards Europe. You know, as individual EU member states, we are comparable to most of us, to at most a province of China, usually a large city, which I think puts in focus the fact that in the one area where member states have actually given up sovereignty, trade policy, and the Commission has the exclusive right to conduct trade policy with other power centers on behalf of the member states, we are thereby more influential. We can get better terms of trade.
While we've been here in Asia, Vladimir Putin went to Mongolia. Despite Mongolia being a member of the International Criminal Court, he was free to go there, not be arrested. Comments on this?
Well, look how the mighty have fallen. Vladimir Putin used to be received by the Queen of England, by Pope John Paul II, and now he has to scurry around and see who will and who will not put him under arrest. That's not a good position to be in. But yes, we are disappointed that the Mongolian government did not execute the arrest warrant.
Final question, because part of this visit to Mongolia is Vladimir Putin is very interested in building a pipeline to China. China is doing everything it can to take advantage of this situation. Meanwhile, for the first time since the full-scale invasion in Europe, Russia is once again the largest source of natural gas for Europe. How can we get off Russian gas?
I don't know the statistics. To the best of my knowledge, Russia has lost its most lucrative market for gas and is having to sell gas at huge discounts to both India and China, which is why the Russian economy is beginning to suffer as a result of this mad war.
Mr. Minister, thank you very much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. Thank you, sir.